Bit of a rainy afternoon today, but I'm going to get a few things done. Well, one thing done. I've got these compost bins now so that they're probably nearly 2 feet lower than they were. They were right up here when I filled them last time, so they've really settled. And same for this one, and same for the one in the corner. So I'm going to uncover all the bins and take the top off of this additional pile that I set down here, and then just top the bins up. And I need to move a few bits and bobs and uncover it, but it shouldn't take me too long. Once I get them cleared down, I'll show you what we're dealing with. Okay, so here we go, nice and compact now, and worms right at the top. So it's still warm in here, but you can see how the worms have found their way right to the top, which is great news because it just means it's going to decompose really well. So that one's good. This one's much the same, a little bit of fungal growth, which is no problem. And again, gosh, it's really nice and warm in there. You can see some steam rising, and it's not that cold a day, so that's fantastic. This is also rotted down because it's effectively its own compost bin, and this one the same. And there's some bits at the back that have not quite decomposed, so I'll just drag those into the middle, and we'll be putting lots of good, fairly warm material on top. So I've got my trusty pitchfork, because there's no doubt about it, a pitchfork moves this stuff so much better than anything else, and a long-handled one really helps. So just got to work from the front, probably top that one off, or maybe this one. Work smart, least distance possible, and then when I get back there I'll be ready to put some into there. So, bit of a shifty round. It's a good day for it because I'm covered by this tree and I can stay a bit dry whilst it's drizzling. Well, that worked up a sweat, and it's amazing how much of that went into those two bins. I could still keep going, but I'm thinking, I guess most of this will go straight into that bin. And the way we're going, I'll clear this central pile of manure in one go, which would be great. And these will still rot down lower, but the season's done for arrival of new manure. The horses are out, and therefore it's not accumulating in the stable. So this will be it, but there'll be plenty. Right, on with this one then. Well, that cleared that out. Just got to flatten this off now a bit, and then it'll be ready for covering again. And then that'll be it for moving compost or manure for this year. The next time I'm moving this, it'll be spreading it on my beds after the growing season. Right, covers on, and then move on. I thought I'd bring you straight to the pond. The pond is crawling with newts now, and I think you'll be able to see two very young newts on top of that stone. There's one to the right and one to the left. It's quite difficult to see, I know. Maybe you can just see the shadows. But this morning there was a pregnant female in there, and there looked to be lots of young newts, so it's doing really well. Got a bit of a water boatman going across there. There he goes. And we've got some leaves on the lily now, which is nice, and we're going to be feeding that today. I'll show you how. So this is what I'm going to use. Growth balls. I know, but they're for pond plants. They're ideal for lilies. And the plan is to push a number of these balls into the basket that the lily's inside. So let's see how we get on. I'm going to use my gauntlets for this. And they weigh heavier, they don't float. And you can just push them in. I'm going to drop a few on the surface, I think, and then just poke them in the soil. Now, it's really easy. If they were to float, it would be a real problem, but they're absolutely fine. There you go. So there we are, growth balls for pond plants by Valda. We'll see how they work. Well, I said this was going to be a hodgepodge, and it really is. I guess you call this a seasonal construction. It's going to last a season. So I'm going to use these old bits of tuber 2 on a bit of tuber 1, try and join those together. I've got another piece here which I could set on one of those, and I'll probably join them together using just some battens, and that'll make the sides, and then I'll screw these into the side as well. So it's a bit of an Airfix model. I'm gonna give it a go anyway. So I'll speed this up. It might take me a while. That will do me. Temporary structure, but the main thing is it retains the soil, and I'll be able to grow in it this season, and then I can think about doing something a little bit more attractive and permanent, something like that one, I suspect, all in good time. Start of next year maybe, or maybe even a winter project. We'll see. Right. Next step is to get some nets on these. Now, I put 3 of those hoops on here. These hoops were my homemade hoops from sprung mould steel, which unfortunately is no longer available on Amazon, but if you can get it, it's 8mm thick and it does a fantastic job. I think what I'm going to do is take the middle one out, because I just don't need the support in the middle when you stretch the net over the 2 end ones. So that gives me 1 to go in there. I've already got 2 in there, so I need 1 more. And I'm thinking I don't need 3 in the middle here. I can just reconfigure the position of 2 of those, take 1 out, and then that's got all my beds covered that I want covered. Right, I think that comes next. Get those nets on. That's 3 covered then. Whenever I do anything with nets, I get asked a lot of questions, so I'll try and answer a few. So this netting is scaffold netting. It's got this sort of seam in it. Never causes me any problems, but it's very flexible. And this one's the same. And then this is much more of a bird netting, and it's quite malleable. It's stiff but malleable. And you'll notice that I rolled it. It's really tempting to cut nets for the size of the bed that you're just trying to use it on, but in my experience, I change my mind a lot. I move things around. Here's a good example, having made these beds. So just rolling them and keeping them sort of taut is all you need to do, and not really cut them unless you're cutting off of a really big roll. Now I've got to cover this one, which is quite wide, and I've got a couple of bits of net left. I've got this, which is unique. I've only got one of these. It's really stiff, it's plasticky, but it might do the job. And then this is the most malleable of all this sort of bird netting. And of course, I've got this environment mesh, which works well as well. So I use a real mixture of nets. And if you're wondering why I use nets so extensively, it's because the cats that are around this area, of which there are 20, I would say, they just use the beds as a litter tray. And here's a good example. Having just moved this compost, we've got a deposit. So that's why they're on there. No other purpose, although the environment mesh obviously do really help from keeping insects, butterflies, caterpillars off of a lot of veg. So I've got this one to do. See if I can work out a way of covering it, and we'll go from there. That is very temporary indeed. That piece of net is probably 3 times the length I need. So I'm gonna have to think about that one, but it's covered for now. I think that just leaves me one more, which is where I've taken this hoop from. I'll just spread that hoop out. I think I might just put the hoe round where I've got these weeds emerging, and then just get this long one right the way across. And really it's just a placeholder, keeping the soil from being dug by cats. And this is where my leeks are going to go for the 3rd year in a row, and hopefully they'll do really well there. Okay, let's go. There we are, 2-minute job. And this scaffolding net with this seam down, I know people struggle with the fact it's got that seam, but it actually helps because you can center it on your hoops, and it makes for easy, even spread of the net across the hoop. So yeah, give that a quick hoe, and then that soil will be kept guarded now until I'm ready to put my leeks in. Right, I've got a little job to do for the chicken run. I had a little area that had lifted, so I'm just going to staple it back down again. At the moment I've done a bit of a Heath Robinson and put a crate against it, but I'll get my staple gun on that now. Right, well, I know you can use some very substantial tacks for this sort of job, but I find that this simple staple gun does a great job. To get these fixed in place. Oh, I've got a bit of a jam going on. Get that one out and we're good to go. There we go. Yeah, I know. It's exciting, isn't it? You won't be able to get out from here. And there we are, good to go. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video today. If you have, why not like and subscribe, and get my uploads on a Wednesday and a Sunday at 8 PM. Good times.